Hey there, welcome to the James Show. This is News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You spend a lot of time streaming these shows, and one of the greatest parts about streaming is that for our entire lives, if you sat down to watch a show, you just had to watch whatever episode's on. And if you missed the exposition in the episodes before that, you had to figure it out or ask somebody. But now we just watch shows from episode 1 until they're completed in sequential order for as long as we want. It's amazing. However, now we need to have some assistance with this new amazing technology, and we call it First Impressions. And in First Impressions, Del Pullen watches the first episode of 2 of these series. We do a contemporary show, one that's come out in modern times, and one that's a classic, because there's a lot of classics out there. And then we just do a knee-jerk overreaction on the ability of the rest of the episodes, if they're any good or not. Welcome back, Del Pullen.
Hello, James.
Okay, so in this week's edition of First Impressions, what is our contemporary show and what is our classic show?
Well, I like to normally go with themes that unite the episodes, and this time it's retired baseball players. So we got Cheers and Eastbound and Down.
Oh, my goodness. This may be my 2 favorite shows of all time, because it has, look, Eastbound and Down is all about the one character, but he has so much help. That whole cast is amazing. Which one are we starting with?
We're going to start with Cheers. Might as well go with the oldie here. So, of course, Cheers ran on NBC's must-see TV lineup from 1982 to 1983, total of 275 episodes, 28 primetime Emmys. Its finale was the most watched episode that year when it finally finished in 1993.
Okay, now I have seen every episode of Cheers at least twice, including the first episode.
Oh, excellent. Well, then you should know this one. Do you want to take it or do you want me to do it?
Well, yeah, the little kid comes in with the fake ID for the opening scene, and then hilarity ensues.
There we go. So, yeah, Sam Mayday Malone is a retired Major League Baseball player, right? He used to play for the Boston Red Sox. He's 3 years sober in the pilot. That's something I actually forgot. And when asked, why did you own a bar? He says, well, I bought it when I was drunk. And that's the reason he retired, is because he started drinking too much. This episode introduces the staff that we all know: Sam, Diane, Carla, Coach, Norm, and Cliff. People like Fraser and Woody wouldn't be introduced till later in the series. So the pilot is basically Diane comes in, she's a student, and she is engaged to her professor. They're going to fly off to Barbados to get married, and he says, I'm going to leave you here for a bit. I'm going to go get the ring back from my ex-wife.
And that was that Sumner Redstone? Did I remember that name correctly?
The last name is Sumner, yes, or one of the names is.
I think it's Sumner Redstone.
Better memory than me.
Yeah.
The name Sumner always stuff, but I can't remember. Well, you get a point for that. You get a point for that today, James.
Thank you. I'm up to like 8 points.
Yeah, you can add them up. Let's see. So he disappears, comes back, can't decide between his ex and Diane. Disappears again. When she calls in to change their flights, Diane finds out that he got on the plane with his ex and they flew off to Barbados, leaving her there. Sam offers basically a job as we meet all the other cast of characters as the night's closing up and Norm's and them are heading out. He offers her a job as a waitress, and she says, of course, that's beneath her. She's a student, something she would never do. And then she accidentally recalls a very large drink order that Carla had screamed at Sam earlier, and she realizes she kind of has an aptitude for this and agrees to take the job.
So my grading of the first episode of Cheers is it's pretty good. Better than I expected for a show, that's that old and had to evolve so much. And the series itself is a must-watch series. If you've not watched Cheers, is it still on Netflix? Because it was. Watch it. And
I'm watching on Hulu right now is where it's available.
Is that where it's at?
Yeah, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It's not a perfect pilot, but it's one that really it puts you in the middle of the characters. It gives you a great ensemble cast right off the bat, but it kind of builds the romantic tension. It does everything a good pilot should do, especially for an 80s, 90s show. But
I would like to add to that Cheers, not only did it stand the test of time, it has added to its appeal because now, it wasn't at the time, but now it's a period piece. You see them coming in with the hairstyles and the clothes, and they're singing the songs and the music and the pop culture references, and sometimes a politician shows up or...
One of the things I loved was, of course, when she asked to use the phone at the bar, and they have to pull up the rotary phone, the old handset from behind the bar with the cord on it, set it on the bar for her to call the airport. And I was like, right, you used to have to call the restaurant and ask for people if you needed them. You couldn't just reach out to them, and that was a little bit, I remember that from being a kid in bars. Yes, my father didn't raise me well.
Right. All right. Coming up next, we're going to do what is sort of the modern, although I would say more adult version of the same Cheers setup. This is a former Major League Baseball player who has fame and no more fortune and gets into all kinds of hijinks. It's not for children, though. Cheers is perfect because me and the wife struggle to find a good show that we can watch because we have 4 kids. And even if they're not going to sit down and watch it with us, they walk through the room. We can't have Eastbound and Down on when they're awake, but we can have Cheers on when they're awake. Eastbound and Down is a show after the kids go to bed. And Cheers is probably my favorite show of all time. Eastbound and Down's probably in the top 5. I think Seinfeld beats it, and there's a couple more, but we'll talk about that coming up next. All right, now if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of an episode of First Impressions with Dale Pullen, and this is where we review the first episode of 2 TV series, one classic, one contemporary. We just did Cheers, about a retired baseball player and all the hijinks and fun that he and his friends can get into. The next one, also about an ex-baseball player and all the hijinks and fun and he can get into, Eastbound and Down. But this is a much more adult version, Dell. Tell the guy listening about the first episode of Eastbound and Down.
Well, you can tell it's going to be more adult right off the bat because it's an HBO exclusive. 29 episodes from 2009-2013, produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. If you don't know who they are, they do Gary Sanchez Productions. They've done a ton of slew comedies together that Will Ferrell acts in, Adam McKay directs. Will Ferrell from SNL, and of course Adam McKay from The Big Short and some other films that you've seen together.
So these guys have teamed up to do like Old School and Step Brothers and Ricky Bobby or Talladega Nights and
the other guys. I mean, anytime Will Ferrell, especially when they're with John C. Reilly, was Adam McKay was the director, and usually written by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, and they picked up Eastbound and Down after seeing Danny McBride and Jody Hill put together this little movie called Foot Fist Way, which I highly recommend as well. It's almost like a precursor to all the Danny McBride projects. But Adam McKay and Ferrell saw the Foot Fist Way and ordered a couple of episodes, 6 episodes for Eastbound and Down, and that's how they got picked up.
Okay, so the first episode of Eastbound and Down is not representative of the whole series because this show does something I love. Each season, it's sort of its own little self-contained plot line, but they're all strung together. So the first one, he's the PE coach. He's a former baseball player who is a PE coach. And the second one, he's a former baseball player who was a PE coach who's now moved to Mexico and run away from his embarrassing failures as a PE coach. And then in the next episode after that is his return to the majors. Sorry for the spoiler. It's a 15-year-old show. And then the fourth season, I forget, but like each season has a completely different setting. You go from a middle school campus to Mexico and then playing in the Mexican League. And then you're a professional baseball player in the minor leagues on this side of the Rio Grande. It's an amazing show because it does so much. But my God, is it foul?
Yes, and I will say now the pilot does a good job of just setting up and that's all it does is set up the very basic premise. Kenny Powers, played by Danny McBride, who's a retired professional baseball pitcher, and basically he has out of disgrace. He's forced to move back to his hometown and move back in with his brother's family. He has to get a job, and the best thing he can find is a local PE coach for the middle school he used to attend. He finds out that his high school crush is now engaged to the principal of this new school, and his goal is to thwart that, get back with her, and it's nothing but just the best crude Danny McBride, Jody Hill type stuff. They went on to do Vice Principals. If you want to see another thing about schools, we'll talk about them later, and Righteous Gemstones. But it's crude, but I got to say it's funny, and there's a lot of heartfelt moments. Actually, in the pilot, there's one when he screams at the family about how much he loves them. I thought I cracked up so hard when he is telling them when he's screaming at the top of his lungs, I love you. This is my fault. I'm overreacting. I'm going to leave now, but leave the door unlocked. I'm coming home. I love all of you. Well, it's just yelling in their face to a bunch of kids. It's fantastic. I love when adults yell at kids. and treat them like adults. But again, not a show for kids by any means.
Well, Eastbound and Down is sort of the comic version of that style of character, really, that I find interesting. Breaking Bad was a dramatic show, not a comedy, but the main character was someone who was flawed, who was someone pretty contemptible, pretty evil, pretty dishonest, pretty criminal, kind of a bad person, but you found yourself rooting for him. You found yourself cheering.
And you do end up liking Kenny Powers. That's the weird thing, is you see his low moments too, where all the bravado falls away, and you see what a broken man and empty and alone man he is. And it is a story of a redeemable demon. It's a redemption story. And over the 4 seasons, like you said, it's him working back up into the majors and what he wants to do with his life. After seeing, the lowest of his low, how high can he climb? And honestly, that's what I loved about the show, was what a disgusting low character, but it doesn't stay, it stays lowbrow, and it does stay crass. But you come to love the characters, almost like we talked about on Schitt's Creek, where they're deplorable at the beginning, but by the end, you love them and you're rooting for them.
All right, I had to dump that. You're not allowed to say that. The Creek show that has a funny sounding. Yeah. Don't say it again. But I did have to dump that. It's a great show, and I just remembered what the last season was. After his baseball career, he's now a broadcaster, and I remember having fun with that because for a while there, I was on TV and I had a similar job. Oh, it was amazing stuff. Now, Danny McBride is always a flawed character. You always know that he's dishonest, he's prideful, he's boastful, but his main love interest evolved. She started out normal. She started out like the straight guy in the Smothers Brothers. By the end of the show, she was just as crazy as he is.
Well, he does have a tendency to pull people down. The character Stevie, who is the band teacher,
oh, I love that guy. Yeah,
uptight. He's great. He's in the Haters Get Back and stuff too. But he plays a great dork, and he is ruined by Kenny becoming his best friend, becomes a drug addict. He is dragged into the underworld of filth too as well. And that's the thing about Kenny Powers, with the exception of maybe his brother, he brings everybody down that he touches as he climbs back up on top, especially the broadcast season. When you get to that, he makes his way back to the top by pulling other people down. And that's definitely how he finds success in the world.
All right. Well, great episode of First Impressions. I can't stress this enough. Both of these shows are amazing. Eastbound and Down is foul. You cannot watch it with kids anywhere near. It's not just a language. There's all kinds of nudity. There's all kinds of drugs. He's a terrible human being, but it's a great show. Thank you very much, Del Pullen.
All right, thank you, James. Appreciate it.
And thank you for hanging out on the James Show today. Before I get out of here, I'm supposed to remind you that Gabriel Iglesias, his tour is coming this weekend, April 14th. He's going to be across the sidewalk here at the American Airlines Center, downtown Dallas. It's the Don't Worry, Be Fluffy tour. Now, you can head on over to WBAP.com contest page. I believe today is your last chance to do that because they have to give away the tickets tonight, and then they'll try and get them to you tomorrow. They just email them to you. So this is like your last little 24-hour chance to get some free tickets from WBAP.com. And if you don't get them, just go buy them. Go to the fluffyguy.com. He has his own website there. Gabriel Iglesias, American Airlines Center, April 14th. Thank you very much for hanging out with the James Show. Mark Levin's coming up next. This is News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.